This is Veisalgia, written by Kraiva. Part 20 of Surrogate, the Director's Cut. The rating is teen and up audiences. No archive warnings apply. The fandom is Malevolent, the podcast.
Additional tags. You thought there would be no consequences for the right? You thought wrong! In which John learns that even without a body, you can get hungover. Arthur is doing better. For now. Maybe it's something about it being a whole year. Everybody in the palace getting tipsy. Holy shit, we're at 20 parts in this podfic. Voices by Jasper as Arthur, LynnLarsh as John, Brice as Napu, Flamia as Hastur, Vmprsm as the narrator, SSJTrinity, Kraiva, and Somniate as the work introduction. Editing by Flamia, directed by Vmprsm, transcript by Saffron, created and posted with permission from the authors of Surrogate, the Director's Cut.
Dawn has broken, and the events of the spring rite have caught up to Arthur and John. One of them is feeling it significantly more than the other, though. How exactly does one treat an eldritch hangover, anyway?
When Arthur woke, Hastur was gone, though the memory of his presence remained, along with the wrecked and splintered bedframe. He didn't feel like he'd slept a wink and groped blindly to ensure he didn't accidentally stab himself with broken bed springs or shards of wood, and from the feel of it alone, there was quite a decent amount of the latter.
Is that...
The sunlight of morning had crept far from the window, if that's truly what he was feeling.
For Christ's sake, John?
John startled a bit and then let out a long, deep groan that would be hilarious if not for the context of the night previous.
Oh, gods. That's much too bright. Arthur, turn it off.
That's the sun.
Arthur stood very carefully, deeply aware that at any moment he could slice his feet to ribbons with the wrong step.
What time is it?
It's too bright.
John, I need you with me. I need you to guide me out of all this.
Arthur said, very patiently, certainly much more patiently than he felt.
Fuck. Okay, I guess. Step forward with your right foot, stay on your toes, and set it down. Yeah, there.
A deep part of Arthur wanted to laugh hysterically at where his life had led, a hungover piece of an eldritch horror beyond imagining, guiding him through the wreckage of his bedframe.
All right. And next?
This would be easier if I could see without being blinded.
I know just what will perk you up, John.
You do? I feel awful. Lower your left foot just a touch, but don't set it down yet. If you're careful, you can use that piece of wood to clear a space.
Arthur felt the scrape of wood beneath his toes and hesitated.
Good?
Yes. You should be able to cross the room now.
Thank fuck. Arthur hopped across the remaining splintered wreckage and staggered towards the wash basin, diving in to scrub the lingering feeling of last night's energy from his skin.
All right, okay. We made it through that.
We did.
John.
I don't want to talk about it. I would like to know how you'll make me feel better.
Arthur had not put a ton of thought into that quite yet.
Most of my hangover cures usually work on the body. Maybe.
He dunked his left hand in the wash basin up to the elbow.
What are you doing?
A shower usually helps me.
Arthur took a washcloth and scrubbed his numb limb.
Have at you, then.
Arthur!
His left hand surged underneath the washcloth, fighting to get away, and Arthur clamped his left shoulder against his body as tightly as he could.
Arthur, what the fuck are you... Stop!
Once you've gotten good and woken up.
He couldn't stop the laugh that bubbled out of his chest.
You asshole.
Arthur gasped as cool water drenched the front of his pajamas.
So that's how it's going to be, eh?
This is our arm. What the hell are you doing?
If you're going to be a shit about it, I may leave you in there longer.
With that, Arthur dunked his left hand back into the basin, clamping his right down onto it with the rest of his weight.
You're a fucking idiot.
He pulled his hands out of the basin, shaking his right unconsciously as he groped for a towel, and let out a gasp as his still wet left hand plapped across his face, drying itself off against the scruff of his chin.
Well, do you feel better?
He toweled himself off. The pajamas were awash, but he needed to get changed anyway. If it was this late in the day, he may not have much time to languish about. It could wait until after he shaved.
A bit. You're still an idiot.
I've never treated an eldritch hangover before, John. It's going to be a learning process.
He pulled on fresh clothes, his shoes, but hesitated 3 steps from the door.
John, what time of day is it?
I believe it's early afternoon. The sun lies long across the floor, but without the golden cast, the approach to evening often gives this place.
Do you think it's safe?
John was quiet for a long moment.
I don't sense the energy that was present last night.
So, yes?
I don't know that it's wise of us to leave. I don't sense any danger, but I don't remember how long these things go on. I'm sorry. Why?
Arthur cracked the door open, just enough to get a view directly to the right.
I don't suppose you see the breakfast cart.
No. Oh, you're hungry.
Ravenous, actually.
Arthur closed the door again and sighed within the safety of his room.
Ugh. I don't think I've eaten since yesterday morning.
Right. You're right. You were hungry. That's excellent. So we're going to the kitchens?
If you think it's...
It'll be safe enough. I think I might know where the kitchens are.
Excellent. Left or right?
To your right.
The palace was silent as they walked, the air still heavy with the remnants of perfumes and a musky undercurrent that Arthur assumed was bodies. It was peaceful in its own strange way.
John, I was thinking...
Arthur, there's something very large coming down the hallway towards us.
He froze, heart leaping to his throat.
A doorway?
To your left. Hurry!
He moved quickly, John's murmurs guiding his hands to the knob, which, naturally, stuck fast and refused to open.
Locked.
Then you need to run or call for...
Why? It's you!
A deep voice, loud and gently slurred, sounded from behind him, and Arthur felt a cool, rubbery appendage pat him on the shoulder. He froze, a terrified whimper threatening to escape him.
What luck! You put on a great show, my boy! What's your name again? All right!
It's giving us space. I don't think it wants to hurt us.
Oh, Arthur.
He turned carefully and slowly.
I'm not supposed to...
Oh, I hardly intend to poach you!
Its bleary nature suggested that it was still quite drunk.
I'm not after anything! Not after last night! Ha! You're quite the showman! Much better than Karloff ever was!
Oh, thank you.
And polite!
The creature made a horrific sound, like 4 geese being strangled with each other's necks.
Hastur hasn't hosted a rite in years! And he pulls you out of thin air! Brilliant! Between you and me, Karloff could have never pulled out a piece like you did there. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that Hastur...
I presume there is a reason you are accosting my composer, Napu.
Arthur hated the relief that washed over him as Hastur's voice echoed through the hallway, and he swallowed thickly.
Hastur!
The creature's voice remained cheerful, seemingly oblivious to the dangerous rumble of the king's voice.
Merely paying him a compliment! A lovely spring rite! He's truly excellent, your little human!
Hastur is much bigger than this creature. He seems angry. I think this Napu is too out of it to realize what's going on. The rite is over now. And I believe you were leaving?
Of course, of course! No need to get testy, old boy! A friendly compliment, I promise! I have no intention of harming a single protuberance on his little head! Besides, we all remember what happened last time someone did that!
Arthur got the sense of the creature leaning towards the king.
Make no mistake, he's very much yours. We are all very aware.
Arthur's heart pounded, and he was deeply aware of how small he was, pressed against this locked door, with an oblivious eldritch horror between him and the king in fucking yellow. The silence stretched on for ages.
You're still drunk, Napu.
His voice had transitioned into patronizing patience almost seamlessly.
Shall I portal you back home?
You're such a gracious host!
Arthur could feel his hair blow back as a portal opened, the reek of rotting seaweed and salt air flowing past and over him.
Thank you! See you next year, I hope!
Perhaps.
The portal closed with a small, seamless noise. It was quiet.
What? What are you doing out of your rooms?
Arthur let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding.
For fuck's sake.
You may not be aware.
Arthur got the distinct idea of him stretching upward and looking over his shoulder.
But after a rite, there is much that the host is left to do. I am extremely busy and do not have the time to be your escort. Why are you out?
He's fucking hungry.
So you are.
Arthur's voice box refused to work.
The breakfast card. It wasn't...
Yes, an error in scheduling. It will be corrected. Where? Oh, there you lot are.
Arthur, the dancers have arrived. Probably about a dozen of them.
Just who I needed. You two, escort this one to the kitchen. Do not break him.
Arthur heard the whisper-soft chitters of understanding and agreement and questions? He wasn't sure.
He can have whatever he wants, within reason. When he's done, escort him to his rooms. The rest of you...
One more thing.
Arthur ventured to a gasp of delight from John. The force of the king's gaze fell upon him.
What?
My bed.
It will be replaced.
Arthur unconsciously pressed himself against the door.
We will never speak of this again, and you will not leave your room
until Thoreau returns.
So we're on house arrest until...
I do not have time to nursemaid you. Get your food and get back to your rooms. The rest of you, with me.
He turned, and Arthur felt him sweep down the hall like smoke being let out of a room, the air suddenly so much easier to breathe. And then he felt what he hoped were hands on his elbows, attempting to pull him forward.
Don't fucking touch him!
Arthur winced at the throb it sent down his brainstem. The pressure did, in fact, let off his arms.
Bloody brilliant.
Arthur rubbed at his eyes and his sore temples.
John, which way?
Step forward and turn to your left. We're going down the path we were on before we were stopped. Someone was in a foul mood.
I think he's probably hungover as well.
The dancers, if they were listening, said nothing to him.
After last night.
Arthur, please. Let's not talk about that right now. We're turning left down the hallway.
All right.
A door creaked ahead of him, and he stopped, startled.
They've opened the door for you. I can see the kitchens inside. Now, what would you like to eat?
That was the operative question.
Well, anything, really. What do you see?
John dove into his description with what almost felt like relief, and Arthur wandered around the kitchens, poking into cupboards, filling a plate with whatever sounded good. He'd ended up with a pair of small, fluffy pastries that he had argued about the name of with John for 2 minutes, a bloody scone, though John erroneously insisted it was a biscuit, a small pile of fruit, including figs, a few hunks of cheese that tasted like the heavenly child of Parmesan and Gouda, and a healthy smear of butter.
Are olives any good?
Oh, I suppose so. Why?
There's a jar that was left open on one of the counters. It's nearly empty, with just a few olives left in the brine. There also seems to be brine splashed around the jar, like whomever was removing the olives was not being particularly careful.
Arthur paused, blinking.
I suppose it's not the strangest drunk food I've ever heard of.
Drunk food?
Yes.
Arthur popped a fig into his mouth. Oh, it had been so long since he'd had figs. This almost made captivity worth it.
There's not much to elaborate on. It's a food that just tastes better when you're drunk. Something saltier, or fatty, or oily. I've always been very fond of a nice pile of chips, but whenever I visited New York City, a good bagel with a healthy smear of cream cheese and some lox. Divine.
I'm sure we could find some.
Well, I'm not drunk, so it will lose its charm. Besides, I have plenty.
You could get more, if you wanted.
I haven't forgotten that cake you mentioned.
Arthur gestured with a nod of his head as he took a bite of scone. It was salty, buttery, and dense enough to nearly choke his mouth solid. It also was absolutely delicious.
I don't want to spoil my appetite for Thoreau's party now.
We have no idea when she'll be back. The king didn't see fit to educate the peasants on that matter.
He wouldn't dare miss her birthday, or have her miss it by accident.
Arthur said through a bite of scone and butter and fruit he thought might be strawberries, but were absolutely not on taste test. It was still incredible.
I'll eat at dinner, John. No need to lecture me on this one. I'm eating.
Would you take some slices of meat then? Or a sausage?
Will that mean I can eat lunch in peace?
I will stop commenting on this meal.
Fine.
He added a few small, dried breakfast sausages to his plate.
Thank you. Do you want to eat here or back at our room?
Arthur paused mid-bite.
If, you think it's safe, I don't mind the change in scenery. Are they...
The dancers are just staring at us. I don't think they care.
Alright then, where can I sit?
Arthur took his time eating, sitting on a prep table while John waxed poetic about the various effects of an eldritch kitchen, and took solace in that John seemed to be feeling much better. Life support. The thought killed his appetite as quickly as if he'd stabbed it, causing Arthur to pause mid-chew. Maybe they didn't need to talk about it today. Faro would be back soon, and Arthur wasn't sure he could stand to have her party soured with that. Tomorrow, maybe, after the party. Tomorrow, he would stop being selfish and talk to John. For the moment, he would, enjoy the time he could still cherish with his friend.
If you enjoyed this production of Surrogate, the Director's Cut, please read the original written work on AO3, where it is still actively updating as of September 2024. A link is in the work notes, where you can also find the social medias of all the production cast. Malevolent was written and produced by Harlan Guthrie, and all characters depicted here belong to their respective creators. The cast and management produced this show for no monetary gain, and all rights remain with the authors. Any sound effects or music used in this production were obtained legally or are created by the production cast. Please let us know your thoughts, and as Kane would say,
stay tuned for the next episode!